Hi and welcome to another gaming video. And in today's video I want to talk about boomer shooters, or actually just the term boomer shooter really. It's not something I'd heard of before, but Steam has recently added it as a subgenre, and the general consensus in the gaming world is that people don't like that term. But it turns out that it's probably my favourite type of first-person shooter, so I do like boomer shooters. And finding a definitive definition of what a boomer shooter is was quite difficult. There's a lot of people come up with different things as to what a boomer shooter is or why it's called a boomer shooter. But my understanding is that it just means it's an old-school first-person shooter, but not necessarily just old. It's just made in that old style where you shoot everything on screen. There's very little thinking or story. You might have door keys, secret levels, health packs, ammo pickups, no weapon reload. So just pretty much a straight out and out shooter. Games like, classic games like Wolfenstein 3D, Doom, Duke Nukem 3D, Quake, Serious Sam, Unreal Tournament. These are prime examples of classic boomer shooters or classic first-person shooters, whatever term you want to use. But it's not specifically that it's an old game or that it's an old first-person shooter. It's just that game is designed in that style. So there are modern boomer shooters that follow that. So you've got things like Doom from 2016, Doom Eternal, Metal Hellsinger, Project Warlock. These are all games that follow the boomer shooter style. So first-person shooters, they kind of got a bit more complicated after that. Story-driven, more realistic, less action-driven, with the likes of Half-Life kind of changing the whole first-person genre. Games like Call of Duty series, Crisis, they're miles apart from what you would class as a boomer shooter. So yeah, my favourite type of first-person shooter is the ones where you don't really have to think. So I'm a big fan of Doom, Duke Nukem, Serious Sam, where you load the level, you pick your weapon, and off you go. And you shoot everything you see. I just don't want to be walking around in level too long. One of the games that I was really looking forward to that I just couldn't get into was Rage. It was the follow-on or from the same studio as Quake. And while it had it was a good game, I'm not going to knock it, and while it had some good shooting elements, there was too much puzzle in it, too much open world looking about, and that's not what I want. I want to, like I said, load a level, pick my weapon, shoot everything, and possibly find a door key. It's one of the only frustrations I have with the original Doom, is that you can be wandering around a level for ages looking for a blue key, but that's the kind of game I like, where it's just simple, straightforward, massacre and everything you can come across. And it doesn't mean I don't like new first-person shooters. I'm a big fan of the Call of Duty and the Crisis. These are all good first-person shooters, but they're not boomer shooters. They're too complicated. They're too story-driven. And like I said, trying to find where the term boomer shooter came from wasn't very easy. Did a bit of looking around. There was a couple of explanations. One was quite ridiculous, is that the fact that because you're going around shooting everything in the game with big guns like the BFG and rocket launchers, etc., it's boom. Well, that's not right, because every first-person shooter, whether it's a boomer shooter or a more modern style shooter, they have big weapons. So I discounted that. And some said that it's because it's from the baby boomer generation. But baby boomers are 1946 to 1964. Add on about sort of 20 years to that. They're not going to be playing Doom and Quake. That's going to be more sort of Gen X, where they were 1965 to 1980. By the time you sort of get into gaming, yeah, then that's going to be the Doom, Quake era. But I still don't think that's right either. I think boomer these days just means an old person, or something that is old. My daughter came down a few months ago and said, haha, you're a boomer. And I didn't really think much of it, but I think that's where the term comes from. A boomer shooter is just a first-person shooter that follows in the old style, the original style, things like Doom and Wolfenstein 3D, where you didn't do a lot of thinking. It was just a shooting game. And that's where boomer comes from. And like I said, it doesn't there are modern boomer shooters that follow in that style. Bulletstorm, for one thing, I would class that as a boomer shooter because you just shoot everything on screen or whip it with your little leash. That's it. So that is slightly on the edge of boomer shooters, I think, because there is a bit of thinking in Bulletstorm. But Wolfenstein, Duke, Doom, Quake, Unreal Tournament, Serious Sam, those kind of things for classic boomers. And then you've got the newer Dooms, Metal Hellsinger, Project Warlock, Dusk, I think, is also on the list. These are what I would call modern boomer first-person shooters. Well, if you've recently read that Steam had added boomer shooter as a category, and as confused as I was as to what that is, that's what they are. And it turns out that is my favourite type of first-person shooter. I am a boomer shooter fan, so there you go, just a little explanation. Let me know what other classic games you would add to the boomer shooter list, but I'd be more interested in what new games, because I've played the Dooms and the Quakes and the Dukes over and over again, but I'm always on the lookout for a good first-person shooter. And like I said, while I like things like the Crysis series and the Call of Duty series, I do prefer that older, more simpler style of gameplay, which is why I've picked up Project Warlock. Haven't played it yet, but it is on my Switch Lite, ready to go. And I did buy Doom and Doom Eternal because, well, first of all, I'm a Doom fan, and second of all, they look like the style of shooter that I like. So if you've got any more boomer shooters, modern boomer shooters that you could add to the list, then that would be fantastic. But there you go. I've been playing first-person shooters for 30 odd years, and then this term boomer shooter comes up, and it turns out that's the best kind of genre, subgenre that you can get. Well, that I can get anyway. So there you go. Link, like, subscribe, enjoy.